Hey, my name is Brandon Hoffman, and I'm a real estate agent in South Carolina. Today I'm going to talk to you about the closing, the specific closing itself. I'm going to try to keep this one short and sweet. We've got a lot of other more extended content on the channel if you want to check out some of the other videos though. Alright, so by the time you get to closing, everything should be done. I'm going to do this video assuming that everything else is done, and hopefully you've seen the settlement statement ahead of time, but if not, everyone shows up. And South Carolina is an attorney state. Some states are title company states, but it's basically the same thing. Here it's common for the buyer and the seller to show up, sit together in the same room. It's a happy, friendly process. Buyer's buying a home, seller is selling a home. That's what they both wanted, usually. So the first thing you do is you sit in there. The attorney's going to get copies of your IDs to make sure you're not a terrorist. So bring a picture ID. Driver's license works just fine. At that point, the attorney is going to proceed to go through the settlement statement with all parties, and that settlement statement shows how all the funds are being dispersed in the transaction. Make sure it's what the seller is expecting to get, make sure it's what the buyer was expecting to pay, and from there, assuming everyone's on board, you start by the seller and the buyer signing the settlement statement. Next, the attorney will go through the loan documents that are being signed, assuming there is a loan. If there's no loan, congratulations on your cash closing. Yours will proceed much faster. But anyway, so the loan documents are usually about that thick, and it's full of repetitive information that basically say, as a buyer, if you pay, you stay, and if you don't, you won't, because they're going to foreclose on you. So as a buyer, you simply go through, sign all of your loan documents. The seller only has to sign a few things. At that point, the attorney will go back and send a copy to the lender. The lender will then review all the documents, make sure everything was executed properly, and then they authorize funding. Once that happens, the attorney will get the wire with the money, or maybe they already have it and they just are waiting on approval for the documents. Usually this process takes, with a loan involved, an hour, maybe an hour and a half from start to finish. But at that point, once the funds are approved, the seller gets paid, the buyer gets the keys, and the closing is official. Couple of notes on there. I already mentioned, make sure you bring a picture ID. If you're a seller, make sure you bring all your keys and the garage door remotes for the buyer, because those are not going to be yours anymore, and nobody wants, after they close, for someone else to have access to their home. Most attorneys in my area will only accept a wire now, especially if it's for a larger sum and not a certified check. So as a buyer, you should verify, or seller if you're bringing money, what sort of funds you need to have, if you need to wire those, or if a certified check is okay, so you show up without having to worry about going back and getting the money. It does suck when you have to go back out after closing and set up the wire so it can actually be official and you as a buyer can get the keys. If you're bringing money as a seller, same deal. If you're sending a wire into the attorney, verify the wire instructions before you actually send that wire, because once you send that money, it is gone. It is fairly easy for these hackers to make an email that looks like the attorney's email, but it might be missing a letter or something else easy to overlook. So when you get the wire instructions sent to you, call the attorney and verify the wire instructions. Very important, otherwise you might be losing some money that you'll never see again. You need to make sure on who all needs to be present to sign. For instance, I just had one recently. It took about 6 hours because the wife was on the deed but not on the mortgage. They assumed that she didn't have to sign, so the buyers drive down from North Carolina, and I represent the sellers who also drove down from North Carolina for the closing. Turns out the wife didn't know she needed to sign, so she didn't come to closing. So we had to wait about 6 hours while the lender drew up whole new closing documents. They took her off the deed, and then we were able to close, but it caused quite a delay and it was inconvenient. So sometimes you do have what we refer to in the industry as a dry closing. That just means that everyone has executed the documents, but the funding isn't there yet. Usually it's just a matter of waiting on it to show up. And as a seller, you have the right to withhold the keys until you get paid. So as a buyer, I would actually recommend you not be sitting there with the moving truck in the driveway just in case. They do happen sometimes, not a big deal, nothing to panic about. But sometimes the funding just isn't there when you finish signing and you have to wait a little while. So there's that. Picture ID, check on the funds you need to pay and how you need to pay them. Verify who all needs to be present for signing. If you have questions, you should check with your mortgage lender and or the real estate attorney on who needs to be present for signing. Again, most closings 1 to 1.5 hours, pretty friendly process. You sign a few docs. If you're the buyer, congratulations, you get a new house and some new debt. Everybody's happy. So that's it. If you have questions, comments, concerns, I'd love to hear from you. You can email or call or text me or put a comment down below and I'll respond. Again, if you're a new viewer, we've got some other great videos. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel. Thanks for watching. If you have kids, it's totally fine to bring them along. Typically, most attorneys have a little waiting area or either some extra chairs, coloring books, that sort of thing where they can entertain themselves while you're signing documents, because it's not the most exciting process, but it is a good moment because you're buying a new home, so that's cool. There's going to be some good B-roll footage you need to be aware of. Shoot, what was it? Plugs, wires, keys. Drawing a total blank. As soon as I turn the camera off, I'm going to remember. While I think about it, the Known Gnome. I've been excited to try this one from Off Color Brewing. I gotta say it's delicious and I love the labeling. Who doesn't love a mouse in a wizard's hat? I assume that's what that is. It's a good porter. Brewed with bark and roots. There you go. We'll call it a root beer. Why can I not remember? I'm going to turn it off now. I'm going to remember as soon as I turn it off what I was going to say there.